rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. I'll tell you now. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here comes the West Indies. Special request to the Trini posse. And what about the Guyana posse? And what about the Jamaica posse?
The day that David DeCaries died, and I spent many happy hours discussing mainly sport and gambling with him, but one or two perhaps more important things as well. So it's nice to be back here. Nice to see the two gentlemen alongside me, Winston, and in particular Clive, a fellow Lancastrian. Our careers didn't quite overlap. Clive finished with Lancashire in 1986 with a duck, I think, in a NatWest final. Was that right?
It was. I can say I went out like Braden.
And I started in 1987. But I feel as though I've known Clive all my life, because my parents used to take me to Old Trafford in the mid-1970s, late 1970s, when Clive was playing so beautifully for Lancashire, played a long time for Lancashire. So I feel I've known him all my life. And I wanted to start really by a bit of a comparison, because I have a clear memory as a kid sitting in the stands at Old Trafford and watching Clive bat and hitting the ball straight out of the ground at Old Trafford and into the railway lines. Many people here won't have been to Old Trafford, but it's a very famous railway line at the back of the ground. And I can remember as clear as anything, Clive hitting the ball clean out of the ground. You'll confirm that, won't you? You did that?
A couple of times, yes.
So what I wanted to ask was, everybody says the game progresses, that these guys like Chris Gale hit the ball further than anybody has ever hit the ball. But I have never seen anybody hit the ball out of Old Trafford since you've done it. And it's not going to happen again, because they've turned the square round at Old Trafford now. So do they hit the ball further these days? Does Chris Gale hit the ball further than you did?
I don't know, but he hits it often. And probably the bats that they have, the bats now do have a lot of meat. And if you really connect, it can go for miles. And he's a very strong boy. And I must tell you that Chris Gale has massive shoulders. But it's not only Chris Gale, even the little shorter fellas are now hitting the ball just as this Coley and the Sharma. You know, you have quite a Watson from Australia, and they're doing quite well. I think the bats are much better now than they were before.
Well, I went to a bat maker, Gray Nichols, with the bats that I used to use. And the bat maker said that essentially you can mishit balls for six these days. So in the old days, when me and you played, you had to hit the ball right in the sweet spot to hit it far. But they reckon now that the sweet spot is much bigger, so you can almost miss-hit sixes. Enough of that. Let's go back almost to the start. I want to go back right to the start of your captaincy, really, of the West Indies team. You took the West Indies team to Australia in about, was it 1975-6 or 74-5? And you got an absolute thrashing. You got beat 4-1, I think. 5-1. 5-1. Could you sense, as a very young captain, right at the start, that the great years were coming? I mean, you know, that was a heavy defeat there, and Australia were rampant. And yet that sparked off, you know, some of the great years of the West Indies cricket team. And I wondered, as a young captain there, were the signs there that you had a great team in the making?
Well, first, I must say I had no experience of being captain. I was chosen at random. And I remember I'd made 100 against Yorkshire in the Roses game for Lancashire. And a fellow called Howard Booth, you would remember, and who wrote for the Mirror. And he said, congratulations, Clive. And I said, the pitch was a good pitch and so on. And they're very kind to me and so on. He said, no. I'm talking about captain of the West Indies. You've been chosen as captain of the West Indies. And I said, really? So that's how you were told in the old days that you were captain of your nation. I didn't get a letter or anything like that. So that it was new to me. So I was on a learning process really, and we went to India, did very well. We did, you could have seen that people like Viv Richards and Gordon Greenidge and so on, Alvin Kalichuran, Andy Roberts, they were all coming through during that time. And we lost quite a landscape. Funny enough, played there. He played during that tournament. And then we went to Australia, and we I thought we had a pretty good chance of doing well. So we lost the first test, and we won the second test in 3 days, and then we lost the other four. But I would think the umpires played a major part in that. And the point is that I said to myself, if you're beaten 5-1 and you can beat the opposition in 3 days, then something looks wrong there. And when I realized that when we had the full complement of players, that's when we won. Because we suffered a lot of injuries during that period. Our fast bowlers, some of them got their arms broken. I got hit in my head a couple of times. Um, Bernard Julian had his hand broken. Van Bernhold, and these were bowlers. And Viv got hit. So it was a rough tour, it's no doubt about that. But we took it in our stride. And I realized then that if you can beat a side in 3 days that has beaten you 5-1, then there's hope. And we went away and we worked at a lot of things, especially our training. Um, I don't think we trained enough. We weren't we didn't do well in that area. Um, and we had youngsters, and they were easy to work with because, as most mothers here would know, you bend the tree while it's young. And the guys, for some reason, took to me. And I think as a captain of the West Indies team, it's not like India or England or Australia. You were captaining different islands with different attitudes and so on. Being a West Indian, it's not like being an Englishman or Pakistani. You're one country. We're several nations. And you had to bring that team together. And you had to work very hard because trust was important. If they didn't trust you, they were never going to run through walls for you. So they were thinking, is he going to pick all Guyanese and so on? So that situation you had to balance. And the point is, we shared everything. Anytime we had we won anything, I would go and I would speak with the at dinners and so on, and the money that I got went straight into the pool. If we won test matches, and it went straight into the pool. So everybody shared. So we became that unit that we wanted, that glue that kept us together. And I did not have two Guyanese together. I always had a Trinidad and a Barbadian, Guyanese
You
and
mean
Jamaican.
rooming?
Yeah, rooming. Because in those days,
In those days, you had to room, you had
Yeah.
to share rooms.
Yeah.
Obviously, these days, players paid so much money that they have single rooms and all that kind of stuff. But back then, you had to share rooms on tour.
But I think that is wrong too. What they did, what they're doing now, because when you have a young player who's coming in his first tour, he wants somebody to speak with at night, and he has no one really. He goes to bed and his own. And the other thing too, I think the bribing situation, yeah, the bribing situation now with the match fixing, you have a better chance of doing that because he's on his own. But if you have a roommate, it's very difficult to do so. So I think all those things that we took into consideration. We didn't have an analyst. We didn't have. It was you had we had a sometimes we had a vice. I mean assistant manager. But when we had a manager, I saw him when the games were on. I saw him at lunch. I saw him at tea time at the end of the game because he was up drinking with the hobnobbing with the stars. So the point is, we didn't have that problem. When I was captain, then I had to pick the team. I had to run the nets, organize training. Then you have to speak to the press whenever there's cricket. So it was a full-time task. Now they have a batting coach, a bowling coach, an analyst. They have a priest. They, you know, they, they have quite a
The
lot of
West
people.
Indies team needs a priest more often than not.
Good evening and welcome to Politics One. Politics One. Welcome to West Indies Cricket 101 on a Sunday evening. Butcher and Adams with me there. Starting off with the great Sir Clive Lloyd. Of course, when persons like myself, and I rather suspect, um, when we West Indians, when we use the word sir, we don't mean it in the colonial sense. You see, we have taken the colonial accolades and we have turned them around. Sir to us means that we have beaten and overcome those who invented the sirs. You know, just like the game cricket, they invented it and we changed it. They said to be technically correct, the ball pitches outside the off thump, you must play it on the offside. And we said, well, if you put 8 people on the offside, why we should play there? If you close the gate to the plantation, why we go put it through square leg? And if you're going to take a ball coming 90 miles per hour from outside the off thump and put it through square leg, you have to have tremendous skill. So Sir Clive Lloyd, I would say one of the 3 cricketing prime ministers of the Caribbean. Sir Frank Worrell, the first one, Sir Clive Lloyd, and Sir Vivian Richards, the 3 prime ministers. So there were other captains of the Caribbean, captains of the West Indies team. But I think Worrell, Lloyd, and Richards were the prime ministers. And every time I listen to Clive Lloyd, I reminisce on how lucky people like myself are to have been born in a Caribbean, and born in a Caribbean that produced that. I born in a Guyana. Tomorrow is our independence, and Clive Lloyd, of course, is a product of Guyanese independence. Born in 1944, started to play for the West Indies in 1966-67, the year of our independence. The year of our independence. In a sense, our independence captain and prime minister, as we would call it. What a generation. My idols, Lloyd, born in 1944. Bob Marley, born in 1945. Walter Rodney, born in 1942. The Black Stallion, born in 1941. I am forgetting the year Don Quarry. All younger people may not remember Don Quarry, but the big people will remember Don Quarry. But he was born around that same time. These are the chaps and women. Calypso Rose, born in 1941. And the great Sparrow, born in 1935. These are people who are born in the decolonization period. The great disturbances, as they call them, the riots of the 1930s, when the workers of the Caribbean rose up from the Bahamas and the north right down to Guyana and the south and said, Massa Day must done. There is no longer going to be colonialism here. And they shake up and broke up the Caribbean. The interesting thing is those who are beneficiaries of the broken up in the 1930s Today want to charge people for treason when they broke up for freedom. That is the irony. But we think that. And so the Lloyds of this world are the products of that period, born as the world is raging war, the First World among themselves, the so-called First World. In the Second World War, we are waging a war for freedom. Lloyd is 6 years old when we won at Lord's in England for the first time, beat England. Those two little pals of mine, Ramadan and Valentine, Lord Beginner and Kitchener, coming out onto the field. Lloyd is 6 years old. 6 years old. He's 14 years old as the West Indies Federation comes into being. Federation breaks up in 1962. Lloyd is 22, as we become independence. He's 18 years old as Jamaica and Trinidad become independence in 1962. 1961, Sir Frank Worrell takes the West Indies team to Australia. Someone put a note in his pocket. And when he got to Australia, he took the note out. And it was a note from C.L.R. James. If you win or do well in Australia, you will send a signal to the world that the West Indies is ready to govern itself. C.L.R. James used to like those little notes, you know. Kwame Nkrumah was passing through America after he finished studying at Lincoln University. And he passed through, I think, New York, and C.L.R. was there, and C.L.R. gave him a note. He said, when you pass through England, give this note to George Padmore. Well, in those days, you don't open note when people give you. And he gave the note to Padmore and Nkrumah when he got to England. And what was in the note? C.L.R. James saying to Padmore, this young man has tremendous potential. Take care of him, groom him. One day, he will be the president of Ghana and Africa. C.L.R. James. He loved those notes. And Worrell didn't win statistically in 61. But psychologically and morally, they won in 61. In 62, Trinidad is independent. And Jamaica, 66, Guyana, Barbados. The rest is history. So Clive Lloyd's formative years spans the decolonization era, the transition from colonization to independence. It is only natural that someone groomed during that period, socialized during that period, would take the helm in 1974, the roaring 70s. The 1968 Rodney riots in Jamaica. We want to be taught African history. Black is beautiful. The 1970s revolution in Trinidad. Ska comes to an end in 1968. Between 68 and 69, 18 months, rock steady. From 69, the music slows down further. The lyrics is no longer about boy meets girl. It's about get up, stand up for your rights. Clive Lloyd is elected captain. As he said, without captaincy experience. But what did he have experience in? In seeing the West Indies move from colonialism to independence. Just think about it. Just think about what it meant to grow up and coming of age. It's no accident that Clive Lloyd, as leader of that team, accomplished what he accomplished. Beyond the Boundaries, C.L.R. James, written in 1963, the greatest cricket book, Lloyd is 19 years old. Good evening to you all. Tonight we are, of course, going to be talking cricket. I have my two friends with me here, and they're not responsible for my cricketing sociology. But I rather suspect they are much more steep than I am in cricketing sociology. You see, sometimes we don't know what is making us. Today, our cricketers come out of cricket nurseries. Can you imagine Vincent Adams coming out of cricket nursery? The nursery of cricket is in those little alleyways in the hills there in Linden. The smoke bellowing in the air, bringing wealth to Guyana, but killing us environmentally. And those people are battling, making a living to send the money back to Belladrum and Hope Town and Port Morant and wherever, battling the environment, battling white colonialism, white capital. So somebody like Vincent Adams arose out of that. If you talk to Vincent in the early, you say, I could bat bad. That's what gave me in the Guyana team. I could bat. CLR James said, it's not just that you could bat. It's a something that takes an ordinary boy from Linden, walking about the place, short tail, but with a bat in his hand, he's transformed into colossal. That is what our cricket means. Clive Lloyd, and all the cricketers of that time. Special, as we celebrate 59 years of independence, we remember the products of our independence. The products of our independence. So as I played that interview with Clive Lloyd at Maury House in Georgetown, sitting alongside Mike Atherton, who is married to the daughter of the Careys, who is the owner, founder of David the Careys, owner, founder of the Stabroek News. And Atherton is married to his daughter, and they have a son now who has taken his mother's family side of the name. He's playing, I think, for Lancashire, Surrey, one of those two teams. Tidy off spinner and tidy batsman, carrying on the tradition. Because David the Carey's father, I think, played for Guyana in the very, very early days. Good evening to you all and welcome to West Indies Cricket 101. I try to get in my little sociology and politics before the experts come on, because they're going to tell you about the technical side. So it's been a week. We played in Ireland. We were expected to beat Ireland 3-0. It came down 1-1. Usual thing. West Indies took a little while, you know. What Croco said? Why is it that black man always need a kickstart? The first match they played as though they're playing the mighty Australia and succumbed. And the second and third match, they bully Ireland, which is what you ought to do. Which is what you ought to do. The A team is playing South Africa, 1 down. The second match was flooded out, rained out. Our women, very good cricket, but losing the first 2 matches. So it's been an up and down week for us. And we will be talking about that and talking about some other things. Let me bring in my buddies. Butch, I'm seeing you. Adams, I'm seeing your name. I think you've muted something. Your video is not on. Dr. Adams.
My video is on.
Well, we're not seeing you. Your audio
Hmm.
is perfect. I'm seeing your video in the background. But once we come onto the screen, we're not
That's
seeing
weird.
you.
That's weird. Let me yeah, my video is on.
Yeah.
Let me check something here.
Maybe you should sign out and sign back in.
Yeah, let me do that.
But while he's doing that, Sir Clive Lloyd, put him in perspective.
He was the he was the all-conquering captain, or the captain of the all-conquering West Indies team. That you know, he is the guy that you know, helped to transform some of the things about the sport in terms of the tradition of having a spinner in the team, and he went with the 4 fast bowlers. Yes.
Good.
He brought professionalism to the West Indies cricket team. Unfortunately, it was not institutionalized, because as the players who played under him, as they started going off on the wayside, the professionalism that was they brought with them from the Kerry Packer experience fell by the wayside. You know, things like the conditioning and all of those things. West Indies used to scare teams just by their conditioning in the Clive Lloyd years. And and finally, he is the most celebrated cricketer to come out of Guyana. Hence, I always say the stadium should be named after Clive Lloyd.
Adi, you know, I tried in my introduction to put Clive Lloyd, and by extension, a generation of 2 of Caribbean leaders, in historical perspective. And in that sense, I opened up what I would like to think, opened up the frame through which we see our cricketers. We know in any sport there are what you call the stats, then you have the skill set, and so forth. But my argument, my thesis, which comes from C.L.R. James, is that when you watch men and women on a sporting field, you have to take into consideration where they come from, the circumstances under which they are operating, to understand what they are doing. And I try to, as I did, I use you as an example. You know, what is it about someone like you coming from a place like Linden, and how that then shapes your understanding of your role once you go out on a sporting field? And you know, I was reflecting also, Adi, while you were at it with Clive Lloyd and our cricket within the context of decolonization and independence, I was reflecting on, as Butcher was talking just now, about the Lloyd era not being transformed into later generations. But I was thinking about somebody like yourself who came to the attention of your country with a bat in your hand, but got into an accident, but still was able to serve your country with your mind, right? And I'm arguing that a Vincent Adams is not just an engineer or a cricketer, all right? There is something that one can move from being a cricketer to an engineer, right? Rising to the top of sports and academics. There is something about the era that you come. I don't think you'll see that very much today. And I'm going to come to Butcher and, his thing that the Lloyd thing wasn't thrown over. I think there was something about that era, and that is what I was trying to do, to talk about people like yourself and Clive against the backdrop of decolonization, freedom, and independence. If you look at Chris Gale and them by now, they're coming in the Caribbean, no matter how the house live, you see them wires shoot up in the air. Every house get cable. In your time, it wasn't like that. And so therefore, the analysis that Butcher is making about the Lloyd thing, I mean, you ask the question, well, why the Lloyd thing was not continued as we move on. And I would say to Butcher, because the Lloyd thing was the product of a particular time and place. And so the persons that come out of that particular time and place, you really can't reproduce them in the way that we, in a sense, expected to reproduce them later. I'm making an excuse why we lose him today. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. Anyway, I'll give you more than a mouthful there.
Well, I listened to Clive, and my skin was growing, literally, Dr. Hines, because, I mean, the kind of words of wisdom that he exuded there with his comments, it just brings back memories. And I'm sure that Basil has heard me said a lot of what he said there in terms the amount of coaches that these guys have nowadays, and in my days you had to room also with folks, but it helped you. But it goes back to getting back to your question. Now you see why I always preface everything that I say as to where I came from. Christianborg.
Yeah.
Christianborg. There's nothing that motivated me more. I mean, it's a poor community. We had outhouses. I remember
latrine. We never used to call it pit latrine. It was latrine.
Latrine. I remember one guy, a journalist, wrote a piece on me, and you know what was the title of it? From the outhouse to the White House.
Yeah.
But those are the kinds of things that grounds you. So when people look at Aubrey Norton and how he's made up, and Aubrey, as always, just like me, we grew up in the same area as Christianborg, but he's always had to prove something, and it builds that character in you, that it makes you competitive. Those who want to put you down, you always want to beat them. Make sure that you beat them. Like I said, imagine when I was the youngster, the first that played cricket for Mackenzie, for Linden, but because I come from Christianborg, I would be representing Linden, and of course all the games is played at Mackenzie, and I'd be representing Mackenzie, and I'd be booed when I played at Mackenzie, even though I'm representing Mackenzie, and it's because I came from Christianborg. But those are the kinds of things that motivated me. It didn't scare me or intimidate me. So when I look at Aubrey Norton and I see all these criticisms, if they believe that that's going to scare Aubrey or intimidate him, it's going to motivate him even more. So that's the kind of culture I came from. And so and then of course in those days, cricket was everything. It was a young kid's dream. And then I was lucky that my mother couldn't read or write either. So I was fortunate that also she was my alarm clock in the morning. I used to get up and train every morning, 4 o'clock. It doesn't matter whether it's rain or she used to wake me up, do my homework and everything else. But you grow up in that type of environment where you have people who supported you. I had a young teacher that we played cricket, we played table tennis. I was a very good table tennis player, by the way. I at 14 years old, I was a runner-up table tennis championship for Linden. 14. But we had, I had this young teacher, and we would play cricket and table tennis and football and everything. But at night, I had to go study with him, or else I can't play cricket on the weekends, or I can't go and play table tennis on the weekends. So that was the kind of, people who took Basil Fado. I remember my only ambition was to play league cricket in England. And Charlie Davis, I remember Charlie Davis saw me in Trinidad and was arranging to go play with Brian. His brother was playing league cricket in England. And Charlie was arranging. And the same year, I'm looking forward to playing league cricket. Boom, here comes the accident. And I thought my entire life was evaporated, because here I am in the national team, looking, and I know that people like Everton Weeks just love me. So I'm looking for that path. And then I get into this automobile accident, and Basil Father called me in his office one day and told me, listen, you could only play cricket until you're 30, 35, and everybody wants to be around you now. But when you get to that age, nobody wants to see you. They're going to be going to want to be with the next Vincent Adams. But if you get an education, it's going to stay with you forever. And I remember when I used to come down to Georgetown with Basil Fado, we used to go, when we come down in the morning, we go to police officers' mess. And then after the game in the afternoon, we go to the military, the GDF mess. So that's where the elite, the entire leadership of Guyana used to be. So here's this little kid. So when I look at, so that's the kind of thing that motivated me. I used to look at these guys that, I would like to be like them. So those are the kinds of things. So you don't do it by yourself, but those are the kind of things that motivate you, where you came from, the battles that you had to fight. Maybe if I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and living I would never have gotten where I'm convinced. But here's the big positive side. When I look back at that accident, and even when I was working for the U.S. government, like I used to be responsible for an entire state, like Ohio or South Carolina. So, and of course, we were the biggest employees. So I was, I used to go and especially the inner city kids to motivate the kids. And I used to tell them, I said, the probability of anyone making it to the pros is almost nil. And I would tell them my story. And it used to resonate. And to tell them, here, make sure you're prepared academically, because the probability of you making it any place is going to be almost improbable. But if you have an education, it's going to stay with you forever. But that's the lessons that I learned. And that's the way that I raised my kids. They were all athletes and everything else. But what cricket did for me, Dr. Hines, more than anything else, it gave me that discipline and focus. I could have never done academically what I have done had I not played cricket. And to get up every morning, you train hard. You go, you focus, you're an opening batsman. You got to concentrate. That discipline is incredible. So when you look at a cricketer, these cricketers, they're not only as cricketers, a lot of people don't recognize after cricket. Look at Clive Lloyd. After cricket, you're a well mature, developed human being. And because of that, cricket, discipline and focus are two attributes of our lives that it's so fundamental for our success. And that's what cricket. So it was both sides. Cricket gave me what I the poverty that I grew in, put me into cricket, got as far as I could have gotten, and then that gave me the discipline to succeed in life.
Give me the discipline to succeed in life. I'm putting a comment on the board. We are discussing cricket tonight, but this is what our Guyana's degenerated into. This is what our Guyana. People look at me and call me a racist. Look at what one of our Indian Guyanese brother or sister has come here. We are discussing something very important. This is what they are. This is what we are battling. And so I just want to put it there for the world to see.
Yeah. People could write a lot of stuff type on the computer. I always say, come and be a person, man or woman, and tell the person that to their face. And I'm sure it's a fake name he got up there too.
Yes.
I wouldn't put their picture up and so on and so forth as to who they really are. Yeah, you can hide behind the keyboard. Yeah.
But you took us in a direction, and thanks Thanks, Vincent, for that. Butcher, you took us in it because you raised a fundamental question, and that is that Lloyd created something, and that thing has not been reproduced in later generation. And I want you to elaborate and reflect forward on that question, because you pose a question. I suppose it's a rhetorical question, but so I'm going to ask you. But I want to preface your comments with a comment that an African American scholar made, and I'm trying to remember who it was. But anyhow, he said Dr. King could produce an Obama, but an Obama cannot produce a Dr. King, right? And I'm saying a Clive Lloyd could produce a Chris Gayle, and I'm only using Chris because they talked about Chris hitting the ball as far as Clive. Clive would produce a Chris Gayle, but Chris Gayle could never produce a Clive. And so I give you that philosophical intervention, and I remember who it was in a minute, a very popular African-American scholar who made that point. So I want to preface your answer with that. Over to you.
Yeah, but I just want to say something before I get into what I want to say. When you asked me to say a thing about Clive Lloyd, I had to hesitate for a minute because I known him since I known myself. He's a guy I used to call uncle. So, to divorce the personal, I never saw him as this thing because he was always Uncle Clive to me, just like my father. I never had a clue as to the impact my father had until I came to live in the United States and started meeting people from the Caribbean, and when they heard my father was. So I had to step back a bit from that personal to really to give the accolades. But what you're saying is very fundamental in that even I would even go for to say Malcolm X, because many people in the Black Power movement in the United States and globally were inspired by Malcolm X to stand up and fight. And if you go around the world, there are two people you would see their pictures all over the world is Malcolm X and Che Guevara, the two of them together. You see that all over the world. More than Martin Luther King, right? Way more than Martin Luther King. And so in the same vein, Clive Lloyd created a structure in the West Indies team to move this team forward, because you would hear the stories of when they went to Kerry Packer and the lackadaisical performances early on. The story about Kerry Packer storming into the dressing room and saying there are X number of Qantas flights out of Australia every day. You guys could be on one if this is the performances y'all going to put up here. I mean, because this is probably the first joke. These guys, at that level, that is, you're getting paid nicely. First time, they're probably getting paid anything near to that kind of money at that time. And there's always an expectation when you're getting paid as an athlete. And Kerry Packer also then brought in Dennis Waite, saying y'all got to get better conditioned and all of those different things. And what the West Indies did during the Packer, he took that. That was like the last piece putting together of what became this juggernaut that started to burgeon from around 77, and the pieces was putting in together. There we come around 78, 79 is where all the pieces were together, and now this juggernaut is rolling down the road like a big snowball, just getting bigger and bigger, and you can't stop it. And what was the problem in West Indies cricket? West Indies cricket, although we had the structures in place, it was often based on the personalities who are in charge of those structures, right? So when those personalities came off the scene, often they were never a systematic process in how to maintain and to take that structure, make evolve with the changing times. So that happened with Clive Lloyd team. It got handed over to Richard, and as Richards continued, as the guys who were all part of that juggernaut started to retire and leave, and we get into the 90s, we could start to see the cracks becoming evident late 80s, because we were barely winning games. We were drawing a lot of games. We weren't losing series, but that juggernaut we were before, you could start to see cracks. Teams are close. You remember when Pakistan, I think it's 88, Pakistan came to the Caribbean, and there was some controversial umpiring decisions that some say if it had went the right way, they could have won the series and all those things. You started to see those cracks. And unfortunately, West Indies did not institutionalize what Clive Lloyd had brought for that international setup. That it was that they could have taken it into the 90s and so on. And as the environment changed, you just add into it to deal with that environment. And then also what was below, what was below was falling apart at the same time, the foundation of our cricket and so on. So all those things culminate for what was we went from this rich legacy, rich in terms of performance, and just kept sliding down the hill to where we are today.
But I'm not leaving you before I go back to thing, because I'm pulling you out on this. Mm-hmm. You're right with all this, but I want to take you further than that.
Right.
We were losing, but we were still creating a Brian Lara.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Hold on. I want to take you beyond the structure, right? Mm-hmm. Clive Lloyd said something profound in that interview just now. As captain, the manager, the upstairs drinking, and he had to run the show. So, yes, there were the structures and the Dennis Waite and so on, but he was literally doing what he was doing, as the scrapers would say today, right? Bare knuckles. Right? So, I'm taking you beyond the structures of that we can see to take you in the structures in Clive Lloyd's mind.
Yeah, well, that's.
I think I want you to go, because
you misinterpret me.
I'm not misinterpreting you. I'm pulling you out. No, but you notice I said Clive Lloyd created this. Clive Lloyd was the chief cook and bottle washer. I didn't say West Indies board. Never West Indies board. Yeah. This is all Clive Lloyd, right? Right.
These ideas. I mean, even the thing with the dressing room, not putting two people from the same territory in there. He would have seen this in his playing days before captaincy, the cliques that form in the West Indies team based on Ireland and so on and so forth. And he would have seen that as a negative. So when the captaincy was trusted upon him, he said, there's one thing I know I got to change, because as a player, I saw it as a negative. So we got to know each other, and so on and so forth. It's funny because I give you an example how I heard this manifest. One day I was speaking to Sir Randy Roberts, and I was mentioning a certain person is a gaff man, and he laughed. He said, "You don't probably know that I know what gaff man mean." I said, because he said, I know gaff man mean. Fredo was my roommate, and Fredo teach me the word, right? So I mean, those little nuances based on the different territories and so on are very important, because you say something to a player from Guyana, and you say something in a cricketing vernacular that we use in Guyana to maybe somebody from Jamaica, and they look at you like, What you talk about, right? And it's like we would say you're lashing the ball in Guyana. Jamaicans can say we lick the ball, right? So when he hear you talking about lash the body, like he looking at you like, what are you talking about? You know? So but by y'all being in those proximities as roommates, you're able to translate those things, all of those things. Those things seem very minute, but they are very important for the camaraderie and the harmony that
and the sociology, sociology of the game.
I mean, look, I always say, going using your sociology history part, when you talk to the generations who of the 60s who saw the Worrell team and the Sobers team, a lot of them would always refer to those players as great. The adjective is always great, even though the numbers of the players may not be, what you would standard would say great. And that's because, again, the background using sociology and history, West Indies, Caribbean countries coming out of colonialism are becoming newly independent nations. And these men went to England and beat they just not beat they destroyed the colonial master. So in the eyes of those people, those men were colossals. That's why they say as some old timers would tell you, they put us on the map, so to speak, right? And it's on those shoulders the Clive Lloyd team stood upon. I mean, I was just reading Mr. Croft, Colin Croft, wrote an article talking about Chase in the Kaitro News, and he spoke about that. That the world beaters, our Forest Rail world beaters, was the 60s guys, and Clive Lloyd them took it to a new level.
Yeah. Adi, and thanks, Basil, for raising this question tonight, because I think, and I am guilty of it too, I think sometimes we are too hard on these youngsters today, because what we are doing is that we are trying to take them out of their context. So when I said a Clive Lloyd could produce a Chris Gale or a Etmire, but a Etmire cannot produce a Clive Lloyd. That's because I think we are trying to take the Etmires out of their time and place and to put them into Clive Lloyd time and place. We had begun to lose, as you said, in looking back, that 88 versus Pakistan series, where we barely pulled with Winston Benjamin and I think Dujon in that partnership, right? Mm-hmm. The crack started there.
Yeah.
But in that 1988 series, we discovered a Courtney Ambrose.
Yes.
Who went on to be a great. So the Lloyd era, has begun to decline, but we are still producing a Lara, who is our first millionaire cricketer. Not. We will never say a Lloyd is our first millionaire. Lara is our first millionaire cricketer.
Yeah.
But you got to go back to understand Lara as a millionaire cricketer. You got to go back to 49, 48, 47. When, as you mentioned last week, Sir Frank Worrell, who they've called the first Bolshevik cricketer, strike and say, not going to India if you don't pay your certain wages. Lara is the product of that. All right. Lara, we are declining, but we are producing Lara, who's incomparable when it comes to batting all the 501 without a sweat. Team does about 3 times to make that. So we are declining, but we are still producing the greats. All right? And I think when your father died, I wrote a column. And I said, we cannot understand and locate Chandapal if we don't go back to Butcher. Because Chandapal style and the role he played in the team of flashers, all right, we have to go back to Butcher. All right? And Butcher handed that baton to Larry Gomes. And Larry Gomes handed it to Chandapal, and Chandapal handed it to Braithwaite. All right? Your father is then creating a tradition. And we don't see it unless we look, as James would tell us, look beyond the boundary, all right, to see that there's a tradition. So I think sometimes we are too hard on these youngsters because we're expecting them to create a Clive Lloyd because Clive Lloyd laid the path for them and create them. But they will never create a Clive Lloyd because they're coming into being where they could be millionaire cricketers by going out and lashing a ball for 3 hours, and a man come in and face 10 balls and call himself a finisher, and he becomes a millionaire.
Mm.
He's obviously going to view his role out there differently, Adams, from you playing your role. Adams, talk to me.
No, it's a big difference in terms of the cricket generation, the gap, and what we talking about a lot of things here,
Yeah.
and that's very profound. That just one statement that you made here, that a Chris Gayle cannot produce a Clive Lloyd, but a Clive Lloyd could produce a Chris Gayle. It comes down to, is there, I always like to go back to the corporate world, if you will. It's about leadership. And the one thing that has been missing, and when you compare, you talked about, okay, we were losing, but we were developing the Laras of the world, and that's where what you have revealed there is the biggest gap that I had seen in cricket, and the biggest mistake is not to get the Clive Lloyds and those folks to come and run cricket in the West Indies.
Yes.
When from the day West Indies turn over the administration to businesses, to businessmen and money, that's where everything started. Now I understand it. T20, these kids are making a whole lot of money, but we've moved away from this whole tradition of people like a Clive Lloyd. Could you imagine if Clive Lloyd was a leader? And I talk to him all the time. Clive, you see what you heard from Clive there? That's how he is. It's about a team. It's not about what Clive or what Hetty wants, but you can't just go and bully people to be part of a team either. When you listen to Clive, that when he talked, and I didn't even mention this, Clive, and he always looked at people, and you always was interested in people and support them in whatever way they can. As a little boy coming up, I just played youth cricket. Clive used to send me a bat every year, a bat and a pair of gloves. And you know what was funny? Clive, in those days, they had the left-handed bats and left-handed gloves, and right-handed bats and right-handed gloves. So I was a right-handed player, and I used to use Clive left-handed gloves because the difference is the thumb. The thumb that they got a big
different top.
But I used to use it, and I used to use this left-handed because the left-handed bat had a groove. If you're left-handed, got a groove on the inside. The right-handed got a groove. It wasn't flat. And the bat, before Clive gave me that bat, I used to use a short handle bat. Clive bat was a long handle, and it was the heaviest bat on the planet. And you know what I did to me though? It changed my style. I couldn't cut anymore, which was a good thing. I became like a pure driver. Because the bats are heavy. It's more difficult to cut and that type of stuff. The only two people, when I was at DCC, the only two people used to use my bat is myself and Blairy. Nobody else could use it because it was so heavy. But every year I used to get, the confidence that instilled in me, you walking out with a Clive Lloyd bat or Clive Senate, first of all, you don't want to disappoint him. And that comes back to that kind of leadership and influence that it has on you. So I think we made a big mistake when we decided to say, well, okay, cricket is a business. I'm not saying it's not a business, but you got rid. I think Clyde Walcott, I think Clyde Walcott was the last cricketer who was head of West Indies cricket.
Where's Hall?
Oh yeah, that's right. Where's Hall came after. Look, I was in Barbados at an ICC conference, the annual thing. When we were what was it? About maybe 10 years ago.
No, where's Hall? Teddy Griffith. Teddy Griffith. Sorry, Teddy Griffith.
Okay, but I
Yeah,
was, I was
he was a president going into the World Cup in 2007.
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
Eddie
right.
Griffin.
But so here I am. I'm in Barbados at the ICC Cup. I was representing USA Cricket. Myself and Gladstone Dainty, and so we are this cocktail party, and I was with the president of CWI. I'm not gonna call name at that time, but
We know
so
who it is.
so we're standing there chatting, and here comes Gordon Greenwich passing. So Gordon stopped. I shook his hand. Gordon didn't say anything to the president. So now I'm thinking, well, they probably spoke during the night, and so when he walked away, the president told him, all of them believe that they know everything. Not
Mm,
that was when after that I learned that they do not even speak to each other. So here it is, the president of CWI is saying that them cricketers,
yeah.
them star ex-cricketers believe they know everything. So that is the kind of thing that now when you listen to Clive Lloyd and Basil said it, Basil said Clive and them they played and he recognized certain things that I wouldn't do if I have anything to say. For example, I want to cut out this insularity stuff or my question of insularity, or if, for example, if my captain is from one island and he's given even in my mind it may not be happening, but I'm going to be suspicious that if somebody gets to play in front of me, I'm going to think, well, it's because they come from the same island. But when you start putting them together and you're getting to understand the different culture, and it instills a lot of confidence in that leadership. We do not have that anymore. Those are simple things, because right now the players, they're obviously not doing that. But Clive said something there that are pretty telling. I wish we were continuing to do it. And again, Clive mentioned something here, but the manager nowadays, I've always said this. In the old days, we used to have one manager, and I gave you guys an example in that 1969 on the youth series, because I don't like to call it on the 21, that the Guyana team went with. When we picked a team, nobody they ever picked a man who never existed. Yeah, they picked a man who never existed. We got there. Nobody knows each other in the team except myself and Kitiran and Madramoto had played before. Nobody else knew each other, never seen each other, never played with each other. We went there with a manager that we never saw. And guess what? And we were on the 19 team that was playing in an 21 tournament. All the other teams playing on the 21. We playing on it. And it was me and Kitero, and Kitero was the captain, I was the vice captain. And we won the tournament in Barbados. And but again, what that does, it brings everybody together. When you got a manager and you got a coach, a fielding coach, you got a bowling coach, I don't believe in them. I don't care if nobody could convince me, okay, that it adds value. Okay, when you got to that level, it's just a little bit of tweaking. I know when you go to the nets, even the players used to say, hey, or even the manager, because the manager is normally an ex-player. But so is everybody for themselves. Okay, coach, all you're dealing with is the coach. And so it's not the same. Nobody could convince me that these coaches are adding all these coaches are adding value.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making, it goes back to these old templates that should have been involved in the management and administration of cricket, because they bring that experience, that they understand the thinking of players. These guys do not understand the thing. I just gave you an example of the president of CWI, a resentment for the ex-players. That's we've got a lot of that is causing our problems right now.
Yeah, but so you got us in this trouble tonight because you raised the question about the Lloyd era not being reproduced, and so you got us into this discussion. But and so I'm coming back to you. Look, as I listen to Lloyd there, I'm thinking your manager your manager back then is your titular president, Arthur Chung. All right, nothing to do. All right, the captain is your prime minister. He got pick the team, which, like the prime ministers, they have to pick the cabinet. All right, and you see that division of labor there, but it's a division of labor that takes into consideration the particular. I've always rolled in my head whether the structures and the structures that are successful with other teams, whether in effect our application, our borrowing of some of those structural models have not contributed to the faster demise of our cricket. Because I think as you listen to Clive, we are the only country in the world that is not coming from a single country. So there are challenges about the Caribbean that you can't replicate in New Zealand and England. And I think sometimes as we try to get back to the glory days, we are looking to these models that have been successful in Australia and England and trying to use them, the whole thing. So one of the things that I think have to really destroy morale in Caribbean cricket is this thing about foreign coaches. That thing can't work. It may, when a New Zealander is the coach of England, is a white man being a coach. In another white players and thing. When you bring Dyson, a man who was a third-rate cricketer when we were in the world, and you get Gordon Greenidge there, I'm coming out to Adam's point. So you bring Dyson, who was a third-rate, you get a Gordon Greenidge, a Vivian Richards. These are men who have created history that never happened before and will never happen after. But you are bringing a white man, Dyson, a third-rate cricketer, because he gets a certificate, and putting him to coach the Caribbean. Now, if a white man come for coach me, manners will say to me that I won't tell you nothing. But me, I'm taking it seriously, because I come from Buxton, right, in Guyana. I can't take a white man seriously in that sense. All right? I'm going to read the books. I will study his thing, but when he's coming to mold me, I say, especially when I look around and I see a Gordon Greenidge, a Basil Butcher, a Vivian Richards. So I want you to deal with this question, Butcher, of the borrowing of models, the businessman as the president of the board. It's not a Caribbean thing. We have not come out of that culture, all right? We have come out of a different culture. And so I think the superimposition of these models have been inconsistent with our culture and have helped to push our cricket forward into the doldrums. Who am I but a mere mortal? You are Basil Butcher's son. Talk to me.
I remember a former great West Indies cricketer making a statement that this was in the 90s, before our first businessman became president, Pat Rousseau.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That we
Pat
need.
Pat was there before Gordon?
Yeah, he was.
Gordon from
in the
Trinidad.
Gordon came in the 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. This former great West Indies cricketer said, we need a business guy to be ahead of our cricket. President of the board, Pat Rousseau. And I told my father about what he said. And my father looked at me and said, he said that? Put who to be the president of West Indies board? He said it's a damn shame for him, a cricketer of his caliber, to make such a statement. No, I say that to say this. As we all know, the 90s was where cricket now was starting to become a money sport. Mm-hmm. The TV rights and all those things coming into cricket. So it was because it went from a semi-professional sport, if you will, to a full-fledged professional sport, entertainment, blah, blah, blah. So making big money. So obviously, because how running an amateur board, you had one person with Stephen Kamash, we got to be more professional.
Yeah.
You got to have a business end. But that's where they throw the baby out with the bath water.
Mm-hmm.
The product that you're producing are cricketers. You have to have people who understand that process to still be in charge of that process. You could have business, they deal with the business, and as we look at all professional franchises in sport, they got the people who deal with business that don't have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with player development or the player performances, etc. And that's where we threw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Because these guys, these technocrats, I like to use the term, these technocrats that took over, they like cricket, but they don't understand the nuances, etc., of what West Indies cricket is and how West Indies cricketers develop, and the environment in which we developed all these great cricketers from all the various territories. They didn't understand that. They didn't understand that with the changing of the environment, and Vincent could speak to this, in the era where Vincent and those guys played club cricket, they were playing match club cricket with test players, the current national players, everybody was playing, right? That environment started to change in the 90s. A lot of the national players were away making the money in England because you had more guys. I always tell people, when they like to say this thing about England, but they finish in school and so on, please be specific of the territory. Well, from a Ghana perspective, there were very few Guyanese who went to play cricket in England during our halcyon days. Very few of them. You could count them on one hand, right? It's in the 80s where that situation changed, right? So this thing about finishing school throughout is not from Guyana. Maybe some other territories, but not Guyana, right? And so you started to see, like I give you a concrete example. DCC is a club. My friend Boxhill took me to DCC over 30 something years ago, and I start going at DCC. And I remember one year I come home and I gone to the club, and then guy said, "Butch, we got a bad new buy a guy named Darwin Christian, but we can keep a batsman, right?" So I excited about this buy because this Christmas time I gone home. I come home now, April month next for the test match. Club cricket still going on. I turn up at the club playing a first division match. So the first question I asked, is Christian here? And I said, "Nah, man. Christian ain't Trinidad playing club cricket, making money." Right? So I never see Christian play cricket until he played for Guyana when they streamed the thing. That's the first time I can see Christian play. I think it was, yes, that's the first time I can see him play. All the years, every year I go DCC, Christian in Trinidad playing cricket to make money. And that was where, speaking specifically of Guyana, you started the club cricket in Guyana, the demise was, it accelerated, even to the point the president of the then president of the board, Chetram Singh, acknowledged it's a problem because you're now starting to see guys who would never play first division cricket playing first division cricket because a bunch of the players were in Trinidad making hay. During that same time is where the Bravos, etc., came out of that Trinidad environment, because now Trinidad cricket was getting the boost because not only guys from Guyana were going there and play club, Barbados, Jamaica, all of them. So now their club cricket was up here. And you remember there was a period of time, the 90s, early 2000s. So when you look at the West Indies, you could see 7 Trinidadians on the team because all the top players coming out of Trinidad. So if somebody was really paying attention, those administrators, they would look and say, wait a minute. The club cricket is where it's at. And we have to come up with a way in which we can make sure that the club cricket in every territory, how we can raise the standard. Because we see Trinidad with a higher standard club cricket producing quality players, whereas the rest of the region is not doing like that because of the high standard of the club cricket. They didn't do that. And then you would see, I always say this, what they did, and I'm repeating a word my father said to me, all these guys doing is putting in piecemeal, 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 when there needed to be a transformational process of our cricket environment, because it was no longer the environment of Vincent Adams, etc., came out of that. The same countries got the same name. The environment changed. The challenge is different now. We got to produce world-class players in a whole new environment. How are we going to do this? We can't do it like the way when the Vincent Adams and before him was coming through. That structure is not relevant to how we going to produce our world-class cricketers. We just put in a little piecemeal, and all the piecemeal was up at the top of the team, forgetting about the foundation. You can't build a house on sand, because the house going to crash eventually, right? The foundation was deteriorate, and it continues to this day, right? So that is where, because again, to a youngster in today's environment, as you kept talking about, admire, can't produce, etc. A youngster in today's environment don't even know about the players that preceded him. That was never part of West Indies cricket. All the players who were up and coming knew about the guys who played before them. Those were the guys who inspired them to want to be what they wanted to be, right? I mean, now today, I mean, it's a different thing today. When you hear a young West Indian, you ask them who's their favorite player, and a lot of times it's not a West Indian cricketer.
It's not a West Indian cricketer. It's
that was not something.
Oh Lord,
that was not something. None of the three of us here could fathom that our favorite cricketer would be somebody not a West Indian cricketer. They were the ones who wins. They're the ones you looked at and said, "Bye." I'll be like the mom. Bye. You go home and you're practicing. You want to be like John Jones or whatever. That was somebody that we could really identify with, just like we. All of those things add up to why where we are, and we couldn't replicate. And these players today can't replicate, as you say, Clive Lloyd and so on and so forth, or so on, because. And just end with this. I remember the late Keith Aaron that Vincent talked of. Keith used to tell me, he said, "Ma, when we play on the same field with you, father, just watching him alone was an education for us, right? Just watching him, how he carried himself on the field when he was batting or fielding, it was a learning experience every time we had that opportunity." No, the Hetmeyers and all of them won't even come home and play with the little boys.
With them little boys, yeah. Adi, and I'm glad we're digging into this. We didn't plan to go in this direction tonight. When we start gaffing,
I want to say this though, Dr. Hines, before you think of Vincent. I think this discussion is very important, because we have not had the serious discussions out open like how we talking it here. A lot of these discussions, Vincent will tell you, we have them all the time in behind closed doors amongst ourselves. And I think it's important this discussion to go out into the public sphere. We have a public debate and discussion on this issue, because we can't continue the way we're going.
Vincent, you know, the events in our country over the last couple of weeks and the whole notion of the scrapers and so on.
Explain what scrapers mean, please. I want to make sure I got this term down pat.
Well, for me, the scrapers are what the Jamaicans would
I was a scraper.
Called the sufferers, the working class poor.
Okay.
What in America they call the underclass, the black underclass,
or the Marxist Leninists called
the Marxist Leninists called the lumpen proletariat and so on, right?
Okay,
I began to think about because I vex with starting with that group, Gail and Bravo and them. I really vex with them, but I am beginning to turn over in my head whether I didn't carry my vexness too far, right? Because I'm saying, here are these young men who come out of Jamaica, all right? And I'm using Jamaica, but it could be Guyana, it could be Trinidad, it could be anywhere, all right? Come out of Jamaica. They now discover a capacity with a bat in their hand or a ball in their hand to earn $1 million, all right? And you are now bringing, and I'm using the word white here, not in terms of color. I'm using the word white here in terms of a larger structural understanding of the world. You bring in a white man. I hate to hit on Dyson, but he's the one I remember. You bring a white man who was in Australia a third-rate cricketer, and telling he know to coach them by this. And he going to them by tell you, well, you can't hold your bat, so you can't hold your bat. So these boys are earning $1 million at a bip, right? They come from a particular place in Caribbean society, all right? And I'm wondering whether we didn't lose it there. While we were blaming these boys for turning their backs on the nation, and they did. I think they turned their back on the Caribbean, right? And I vex with them. I still vex with them. But I'm wondering whether because we didn't understand our own society and its relationship to earning, I go back to Worrell. Worrell, they call you Bolshevik at the time, all right? When he refused to go to India.
Mm-hmm.
He was being, I come forward to when them by were going to South Africa. And Upa and Laro in charge of the team, and they said, sit on the airport until you settle the money. I vex with them. I know you vex with them, and I still vex with them. But I'm wondering whether we were being simplistic and not really understanding in our vexedness, right? Understanding the nuances of our own society and how it was playing itself out in front of our very faces because we weren't applying the Jamesian theory of beyond the boundary. We were thinking inside the boundary, and not beyond the boundary. And whether that misunderstanding has not hastened or amplified our problem. Adams.
Well, well, I don't think anybody could be as mad as I am, as Barcelona about that South Africa tour, because again, that was what you call the Mandela tour. You remember that was the Mandela tour.
Yes.
It was bigger than cricket. I would have gone there, for example, and played for free. Of course, in my time, money did not even come into your head. Okay, you're playing. By the way, every single cricketer at the time, Basil Fad and every had a full-time job. You had to get permission, as a matter of fact, if you go on tour, you had to get permission to go. So this year wasn't about money. This year wasn't about. It was about, you becoming fame. Everybody wanted to become fame because you're growing up as a little boy and you're playing your little cricket in the alleys and stuff, and everybody had a cricketer name. Like, Rohan was my idol. So them used to call me Kanai. We had another friend we called him Butcher. Up to now we still call him Butcher. And everybody got a name. A bowler will say your Wezal. And even that was your regular name, that was your false name. It became a false name after a while. So it's for that fame that you look for one thing, and so money was never. So that's what changed. But however, you can't be too hard in the play. I give you a vivid example of when you have, you guys hear me all the time. It's all about leadership, okay? It's all about leadership. Whether it's a country or a corporation, or I don't care what it is. It's about leadership. But when I look at, look at Clive Lloyd. Clive Lloyd exudes leadership. Look, he even said how he was chosen as captain. Look, compared to Clive Lloyd, how he selected to this recent thing with Chase. Now, it's not about Chase, but we go on to these things that don't mean anything as far as I'm concerned. How you pick your leader, how you pick your captain. It's ridiculous. Okay, now but we getting back to the to what I think is a fundamental issue here, which is the people who has the experience, who understands the players and the culture and their thinking. They're not even getting them involved in running West Indies cricket. I give you a good example of, here's the CWI chairman, and here's a great ex-player, and their enemies. And the comment was, all of them believe that they know more than everybody else. Now, so that tells you that, here, let me tell you something that resonated in me as to what the heck this is, to me, was telling me that is the problem of West Indies cricket. Because
Correct.
if the great players, you talk about, that's why and that's why, Dr. Hines, that is why you see foreign coaches coming in, because it's the guys on top there. They've got to make the decision. And if there is that divide between the people making the decision as to who's going to coach these players and the ex-players, that is why they go and they bring in people,
Yes.
so that is it. That's the fundamental problem. Look at Clive Lloyd, Dr. Hines. Clive decided, I can't remember the year, but I should probably remember, Clive put in his name to run for the president of CWI, and Guyana did not even support him.
did not support him. Yes, yes,
Guyana did not even support him. So those are the kinds of things that we have to deal with internally. Imagine in West Indies cricket, you don't got nobody. Well, of course, we got a coach now for all three. For all three formats. But the point is, you've got to focus. Even here, and I always go back, even in the United States government, for example, that run the United States, the country, the United States, we do not go and go look for any. They look internally first. When we advertise for a job, especially in a leadership position or even an engineer position, it has to be local. The only way you can go outside is if you do not have a qualified person. So that's the kind of thing we need to inculcate, to say, well, okay, if you need a coach in the West Indies, you got to prove that you cannot find anybody in the West Indies to perform that coaching function before you go outside. That's what it should be.
Coach, it's been an up and down week in West Indies cricket.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 simultaneous series going on.
Mm-hmm.
The senior men are in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
The A team is down there in St. Lucia, and the women are playing against England. Talk to us about what has transpired with the women, because we said last week that we were not giving enough attention to women cricket, and we're getting that.
Yeah.
So talk us through. I think we played some good cricket there, but the results did not.
The results weren't surprising. I mean, it's Haley Matthews and the Matthewares, if you will. You remember when they used to have Michael Jordan and the Jordaneers, we used to call the rest of the Chicago Bulls. That's the West Indies women's team. The only reason we look like half decent in the first game, Haley made 100. Haley out early. We see what happened in the second game. Right, so all those things are, and I was recently on a panel of a show, and they had the captain of Jamaica, the Guyana coach, and the Barbados captain, and because of my, the question, and all of them to a person, for one, the young lady from Jamaica, and I was very impressed with her. She said the Jamaica Cricket Association tell them they don't have enough money. They don't have money for female cricket, so they play one match and then pick a team to go play in the tournament. They don't play much cricket beyond that. It's similar in Guyana, right? They put together the women to play inter-county. All of them play one match. They pick a team and they go to the tournament. I would say this out loud. I hope the Guyana board is not patting their backs, patting themselves on the shoulder. They say, oh, Guyana won the T20 tournament, so all is well with Guyana cricket. No, look at all the Guyana players who are on the West Indies team. Any of them look like they could compete at that level, including the captain Campbell, who played over 100 and change in both formats. and averaging 20 or less in both. Right? So it tells you our women cricket, as I said, it's in ICU, on life support. And it's gonna take a deliberate, professional process to resuscitate women's cricket in all the territories, that we can lift the standards of our women cricketers, that we could feel confident when they walk on the field with any team in the world, they will be competing and not getting blown out of the park, right? That is where we are with our women's cricket. You know, it is absolutely an abomination what all the territorial boards are doing vis-a-vis women's cricket. And you know what's funny? The territory that play women get to play more organized cricket than all the territories. They got their pants beaten off them, i.e. Barbados.
And why? Why the contradiction?
The contradiction is that whatever they're doing is not producing quality players. That is a contradiction. Now just think about it. We're not producing quality players with the men, and their cricket is more organized and they play more cricket. What do you think will happen to the women? Just put those two together, you know. So that's where we are with the women, you know. And I'll say this, Dr. Hines. I don't think we have adopted the models in any totality from other parts of the world in our cricket, right? We have some unique challenges because we are a bunch of independent nations, which would mean there has to be more vigilant oversight by West Indies Cricket Board and all the territorial boards as to what their job is supposed to be doing in the territories, and be held accountable accordingly. But the best practices of how you develop elite cricketers is a universal thing. And we have not adopted those principles in any proper manner in the territories that produce the players. That's one. And secondly, we have a coaching deficit. The coaches who are the ones who work with our players, I would say this in strong words, they're not fit for purpose. And why I could say that, just look at the results.
Let's look at the results. Basil Butcher here. Are they anything you would like to say on the state of our women's cricket?
It again, folks, times have changed. It comes down to money. Okay? It comes down to money. Even Matthews herself, I saw it someplace today. She's also frustrated. She's criticized the administration in terms of how they run a cricket. But it comes down to money. They're not, maybe we need something like a Title VII or something.
Yes.
Really equal treatment. But there's the woman, with the men, even though you're not seeing anybody in the pavilions when it's like Test cricket and ODIs and stuff like that, but the men are still making, the men have they go and play all kind of T20s all over the place, so they're encouraged. They could still survive. They can maintain, but the women have nothing to survive on. I don't know how many professional women we have, but it comes down again to, and you're not the sponsorship for women's cricket. So it comes down to again that everything has become so focused on money that the woman, unless it changes in terms of the board, like a Title VII or something, it's not. I don't see where it's gonna where anything is gonna change.
I'll give you an example. A guy was complaining. His daughter plays for Barbados. You remember when they upped the men's winning thing for the 4-day, $250,000 or something like that, right? And the women is like, I think 20,000 for the winner or so on. And he was complaining with discrepancy. I said, look. Let me tell you something. I don't want them to give no big prize money to the women. You know where I want that money to go? Into each territory, that each territory could get at least 20 women who are going to get contract, whatever you want to call it, and they are going to be training consistently. You start with them to upskill them to where they can be really competitive, right? Look, I'll give you a simple example, Dr. Hines. Just think about this. A young woman in Guyana, she lives in West Dem. She got to come to practice over to Georgetown. So she got to catch transportation. Now, you know, most of these cricketers, for the most part, don't come from well-off backgrounds. So now she gotta find. Secondly, if she got a cricket bag, she can't go in a minibus with a cricket bag because it's too big for going in a minibus. She gotta get a taxi or something like that.
Yeah.
So now, just think about the taxi fare from West Dem to Georgetown and then from Georgetown back to West Dem that she got to deal with. You know how many, and this is, I thought it was just a problem in Guyana. When I spoke to Guy folks around the region, it's the same problem women have just to get to practice. They don't have the resources to turn up to practice. So right there, those basic things are not in place for the women cricketers to allow them even just to practice. So you just think of that. It tells you where the state of the women's cricket is. I mean, look, we had a funny situation in Guyana. They got a left arm spinner girl named Casey Schultz. She played a couple games for West Indies and played for Guyana for years. And she got at Maltinos to play the second division. Now, you know this, Vincent, from back in the days. If you play for Guyana, or if you play for you play at the county, you can't play North Court. You only can play Case Cup, right?
Right.
So she played, she get 5 wickets. You know what I meant? Them man file a protest. She was not eligible to play because she played for West Indies and Guyana. It's a woman. I mean, you know, so the association had to change the wording as it relates to women. How could you, I mean, just think about, how could you think because a woman cricketer, obviously her standards is not going to be like the men, that you're going to quarrel because she played for Guyana and West Indies. I mean, some of these are some of the things that we have to eradicate out of the cricket vis-a-vis the women, so that you know, we get, and this is what I have called for. Every territory should have a director of women's cricket, and that director is given the proper resources to build a pathway for girls and women cricketers all the way up to the regional level in the territories.
But so you've coached women's team, right?
Oh yeah, I was the coach of the U.S. women's national team. That's why I'm so passionate about women's cricket.
Right. Let me ask you this. I mean, what is different, if there is anything different, in coaching a women's team and coaching a men's team?
Yes. There is difference. I've coached both men and women, boys and women. And yes, there are nuances in how you would coach women than you would coach men, right? I remember Courtney was saying when he became the women's head coach, he started to learn and you realized that he couldn't coach women the way that he coached men. It's not to say one is less than, it's just different. And women are different than men. Right? The way you motivate them is different than you know. There could be some crossover, but you have, and even, I mean, I would say this, I mean, it's something, a simple thing like this, a woman gets a cycle every month. You as a coach got to be sympathetic to those things, because you're going to understand she will not be at her optimum when that is going on for some women. And for me, it wasn't hard, because in my profession, I work with a lot of women, and they would tell me all of those things. So I know how to train their training program at that time. Some women are strong as hell, are stronger. Some can't barely get out of bed. Others, you know, they're all variable. So that's one thing as a coach you got to deal with, right? And those kind of those differences and nuances in dealing with women cricketers and coaching them. Yeah. So I don't think it is when these administrators appoint people to coach women, if they really think about that.
Bassett Butcher Jr. here and Vincent Adams. Vince, takeaways from the Ireland 3-match series.
Well, it was the last two games, of course. I think it's give us some reason for encouragement. The only thing is we cannot get too excited. This year we gotta always keep it into perspective. This is an Ireland team. Okay, we're heading to England, but nevertheless, this Carty, without question, he has shown, and what is not that he never had the talent to do it, but now this year will give him all the confidence in the world, and he cannot wait to get on the field tomorrow. When you see when you're so confident and you walk out there, it's just like you conquer anybody. You're not afraid anymore. So this guy is full of confidence. Shai Hope is also in form, but my concern is King, because he lost his confidence. And when you start dropping catches and you're not making runs, you put the two together, it devastate you, because every time you go there, you're frightened to fail. Especially you start worrying what the people are saying back home, especially if people start saying he should be dropped and this kind of stuff. But I am encouraged. The bowling, I think it's very encouraging. I look at Seals. He had a really good, good spell. And this other kid, the Greaves again, solid. So there are lots to take away from it in terms of the positive. Now the A team, to be honest, has been very disappointing. Very disappointing. We look like an ordinary attack. Even I probably could have put down my whites and go there and make a run. They look so ordinary. In that bowling attack. So I'm hoping that they make some I don't know how to correct it, but I'm encouraged by the big team. But we still gotta wait until they go to England to see what is gonna happen. But everything that I see in the team after the first game, and so let's put it on adjustment after the first game. They adjusted, but this year to me, I look at the New Zealand the games as a practice for when they go over to England.
Yes. Yeah, it's to use a Guyana vernacular. They played Northcote, right. And now they're going to play Keys Cup when they arrive in England, right? And in the South Africa, I expected that. You could look at the South. Some of these South Africans, I don't know them, but because of when I follow South Africa and see the level of players who are on the fringes and so on, you could see those guys are cut above our guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could see they just think about it. They didn't bring a lot of fringe players in terms of the fast bowling unit. They didn't bring them. I mean, a guy like Kotsia, who only got 4 test matches, you would expect him to. If Mapaka, for example, because he's in India, if he was available, he would be another guy they would want to bring to give experience. And you can imagine if they had Mapaka and Kotsia there, them two men who could both 150 pro.
Yeah, but still, I'm impressed. I'm gonna remember.
No.
Remember how I like Gil? You remember how I spotted Gil? This guy, I know he's 26 years old. The guy that made 100, that guy can bat.
The wicketkeeper. Yes.
He can bat.
Yes. That guy. Here.
And the thing is, what I liked about him, he's got solid defense, and he does not make a mistake on a loose ball.
No.
Soon as anything that is loose, he's
the thing that impressed me about the South African batters is their techniques.
Yeah,
very good, solid techniques. Even the tall man who make the 50, who is like
Yes,
all
yes,
rounder.
yep,
I
yep,
remember the first game, the first ball he faced, the way he drove the ball through the cover. I
yeah.
said, this time, man, look all right. Because you know, Vincent, you can see how a guy set up, shape up when you see players stroke and set himself. This guy
Yep.
here,
And
this guy.
the captain looks good to you. Of course,
Yeah,
he get one out, but
and the other
he looks
one,
good.
well, what they would call him in South Africa, the collared Jason Smith. He has made 250s in both. I think he 50s in both games.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and throwing wicket too. Throwing wicket in both games. You
Let,
can
let,
see
let,
the way
let me
the way he is just like he's just flowing as he strokes the ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
let me ask you all this, and but you may be able, because you know these guys behind the scenes. Oh, you have an A team, and I'm not being insular here, but my gaze goes there first. In your A team, you don't have a Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have Tajnarine, Chandapal. You don't have a Niall Smith, and so on. And Ali Mohammed, who I think should have been in the 50 over team, right? You're throwing him in the 4-day team. What is happening? Is there something that is going on behind the scenes between the Guyanese board and?
I think where Ali Mohammed got picked as where he deserved to get selected, because he was outstanding.
Yes, he was outstanding in the 4-day. I understand that.
Right?
Understand that.
And look, I think Neil Smith should have been a guy in the 4-day team also, right?
But he's in no team.
Yeah, the 4-day team. I mean, it's interesting that Savory is the wicketkeeper.
Yeah, and he doesn't wicketkeep for that. Where is Jason? Where is Joshua De Silva?
Well, that is a great question. Is Joshua De Silva what that's telling me? Joshua De Silva is not in the test team for the start.
Yeah, it don't make sense.
Because
I agree with that.
Because what they said they were doing, this is not a usual A team per se in the 4-day games. That is because it's the proximity of it to the test series against Australia. The guys who are not in England, you see a lot of them in the A team, in the 4-day team. So I mean, so some guys that we would have thought that might have get to play, but in this 50 over, I asked for this guy, how this guy Tyson reaching the team.
Yes, that's my. I'm asking, what's the rationale? What is the rationale?
Where did he come from? He's a
Windward Islands guy. But this guy Tyson is clear. You can watch him and see that his cricket is not that of that level. The eye test could tell you. I watched Tyson play in the 4-day. There was nothing about that. He got a 5-wicket haul in one game. So what, right? But you could watch it. You know, if you know to judge players where they're stepping up, you look at Tyson and say, no, I don't know a team.
As a matter of fact, he dropped that same guy who made 100 already.
Yes, he did. You know, so I asked the question, right? And I said, and they got this scouting system that they picked Tyson. I know Big Mark come in the chat and said, but you start his story, you the scout. I said, boss, we obviously don't have a proper scouting system or those who are administering it to feel this guy is A team worthy.
Butcher, you still have not answered my question.
Who's up?
Tajnarine Chandapal.
No.
Oh, let me finish. Sinclair, these are guys who were in the test team.
Yes.
Are you saying to us you're done with them? Here is an opportunity. Hold on, Butcher. Here is an opportunity to give these guys a chance to come back and get some confidence and so on. And you are bringing in players, the Tysons of the world, who are not theoretically on the radar as reserves.
No, Dr. Hines. All right, say Hinesy. I do not think Chandapal would be a guy you want to bring into the 50 over team.
No, I'm
Chandler
not talking
Paul
about 50 over, man.
Chandler Paul, a guy
But
like
stop. I'm not talking about 50 over.
No, well,
I
that
am
is
saying even in the 4-day team,
No, well, hold
you
on,
don't have a place for them.
Hold on. Craig Brathwaite is playing in the 4 days because he's getting his reps in preparation.
You still are not answering my question.
Craig Brathwaite and John Campbell, who will be the two of them is going to be the openers for the
I hear that.
So how is Chandler Paul going to pick?
But so you're not addressing the question.
And Sinclair.
Here are men
Sinclair,
who have
better spin bowlers who performed in getting picked.
But so you're not getting my question is these are men who are down on confidence, right? Here's an opportunity and a team comes. Just as you want to find a place for the players who are going to be in the test team. I'm done with that. You also want to use this opportunity for those who are down on confidence to get some. So you're killing two birds with one stone. Anyhow, but so you come in.
And Vincent could back me up. Look, Vincent, look at this guy, for example. Joshua Bishop. One of the leading wicket takers as a spinner.
All-rounders.
He ain't get picked, but you call him for Sinclair.
No. I am also. It is not. Butcher, it's not about the names.
Right.
I'm saying, I'm asking, what is the thinking?
I agree with you. There have been some poor selections. I also think there's a youngster named Tucker Bowen, wicketkeeper batsman from the Leeward Islands.
Yes.
I mean, the academy. He's
what would have been my keeper in front of Savory?
Runs, and he's a very, very competent gloveman. He scored more runs than Mr. Savory. But Savory get picked.
Here's what I agree halfway with Basil and halfway with you that time. No, I totally agree with like a Sinclair. Sinclair just come off a test series. You just can't push him aside with so many games playing. Okay, he can be in the team, but I cannot see right now that they've made the decision that it's going to be Brathwaite and Campbell. And
yes.
I mean
yes.
So they're getting them prepared for the test, and that's the only game before the test. Now Brathwaite has been off form. He's not.
Yes.
So in that respect, you can't play Tage in a 50 over game. You understand?
Right.
So his only place is in the 4-day. And now you got the two spots preparing them for the test game. But in terms of Sinclair, I totally agree with you. He had he had a bad tournament, so to speak. But that one bad tournament, you just can't throw him away. Give him an opportunity now to win back his confidence.
Yes.
I agree. I agree with what you guys are saying, but because of, I think Sinclair may have gotten a chance to play had it not been this situation where they're playing a lot of guys who are in the test team before the Australia as preparation. I think if it was a straight up where it's guys on the fringe and so on, I think Sinclair would have got picked.
Or if they had another game, probably if they had another game before.
But having said that, I mean, as I said, there's some guys that are sitting out that made really good performances to get an 18 pick that didn't get into play. The Bishop guy, the same Tuckett Bowen guy. Those are two names that Neil Smith, in my view, should have also got to play because they picked a guy from Jamaica, OJ Shields, who is reputed to be the quickest guy in the region. But you know where I blame Neil Smith is his lack of conditioning is what could have cost him. Because of his lack of conditioning, in my view, he did not bowl with the same pace that he should be able to bowl with. Because he's a dangerous bowler. And that may have played a role in
Basil, I think you're searching for excuses for these guys.
No, I'm not searching.
I am still saying, what is your thinking? Where is Isaiah Thorne?
No,
What
no.
are
Tarn couldn't even get in the Ghana team. Tarn
no,
couldn't
no, no,
Ghana team
no,
about
but,
Tarn.
but you are dealing with the consequence. I am saying, what is your thinking? Here is a guy who's probably your fastest young bowler. What is your thinking? You have to have a thinking, and the thinking then informs
And the thinking starts
in the Guyana team.
in the Ghana team.
In the Guyana team.
That Isaiah Tarn didn't get well. They can say all different things. He hurt the ankle in the.
But he came back, and you're playing as me Ned, an extra spinner. You get 3 spin in the team, and you're not paying this guy.
I would be the first to say the West Indies, and by extension Guyana, have done a very, very poor job in the process of developing Isaiah Tarn. Right? Here was a guy a year or two ago, about 2 years or even 3 years ago, was our best young fast bowling prospect in the region.
In the region.
Now he is by the wayside. Now, what's going on there? Why is that so? Right? Because sometimes I wonder this. When we get players of that kind of talent these days, one of the things we do with them, we just push them in a corner because we don't have the wherewithal how to take them to the next level.
But
So
you know,
look at what the Indians have done with that 14-year-old boy. They spot a rare talent, and they promote him.
Yeah.
They promote him to the senior team. And I'm saying we are in this nonsense in the Caribbean about seniority and so on. I am saying if you have an attack that has Shields, the 2 Joseph, I think that is it's not a superior attack, but compared with the rest of the world, it's a fairly good attack.
No,
you can get an Isaiah Tarn in that mix, knowing that he's not going to make the first 4, but he's here.
Let me tell you something. Isaiah Tarn, in my books, should be in England right now, be playing cricket this summer. He should have been in England playing cricket. And that's something West Indies board should have facilitated to get him to England in some seconds, playing seconds in some team, because he's a prospect. He's one of our best prospects. And you know England like fast bowlers. England club teams like West Indian fast bowlers. Right?
Butcher, he should be in the team that is there, understudying those guys in Ireland and thing. Look at what the Indians have done with the 14-year-old boy.
Well, let me
and that's boldness.
Last year, Isaiah went up with the test team to England, and he went because I texted him, and he said, I say, I hear you back in the region. He said, yes. I said, where in the region? He said, Barbados. I said, I in Barbados too. He said, where you at? And I tell you the address. He said, I can see in 10 minutes because where we stayed was walking distance. And in 10 minutes, he popped up. So I asked him, I said, I thought that when you went to England, you were going to stay for the entire series to get, being around the setup. He said, no, that's what people in the press said. But when the email I got was I going up to England to just participate in the practice match, the pre-tour training and the practice match before the test series, and then back to the region. Now, what sense does that make? He should have stayed in England, and you know what West Indies should also have done, could have done? Get him into some county second team. So he would have stayed on, and he stayed on, rather than coming back to the Caribbean and playing restrip on the 19.
But why isn't he playing for Guyana? That's where it starts.
Why is he not playing for Guyana?
After he got injured, he could not get back into the team.
They did not bring it in team.
I'm saying he could not get back into the team. They didn't pick him.
They didn't pick him. They picked Ned, who was superfluous to the attack. I'm not saying Ned is not a good spinner. We already have 3 spinners.
Dr. Hines, Guyana has a bad tradition, a very poor tradition of encouraging fast bowling. It's an historical situation, right? Only in recent times you see 3 fast bowlers playing for Guyana. In these recent times, right? We still got this thing about spin, 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 and all. It sometimes seems the focus is only on winning and not that balance between developing and winning. And that's the balance we have to strike, because fast bowlers don't grow on trees. And when we were most successful is when we had a plethora of them, right? So when you get a little guy like a Tarn who could bowl quick, like, look, Andy Roberts said this about Tarn. It's only he could stop himself from playing for West Indies. That is the kind of ability Andy Roberts see, raw ability saw in this youngster. And he more than anybody should know about a fast bowler, right? So when he give that kind of ringing endorsement, you know this guy got some serious ability that if nurtured correctly, he can be a West Indies player for many years to come.
Adi, I hope they don't mess up Kelvin Anderson. I am saying it now.
How you mean mess up? How you mean?
Hold on. Obetro may not agree with me. Mm-hmm. He's the most promising talent with a bat in his hand in the Caribbean. And he needs to be playing Test cricket. He needs to get in that team and develop his experience. People like Hodge and them, they've gotten their chances. They've messed it up. And get them and get these youngsters into this team. I don't, this thing that you gotta wait until failures, fail a 50th time. Then get these youngsters in the team. Adams, your thoughts?
No, I've said, you remember, even up to the last time I said, when you're picking this team, it's up for grabs. There are 3 batting positions that are up for grabs. And it all depends. He of course he was not out yesterday, but if he makes some good scores, he will have to be in that mix. Well, this other by now, Carty is make some run. That now is but
Carty in the Test team right now.
Yes, but Hodge and all of them. No, what I was saying, even Carty in the Test, but all of them, when you that from 3 to 5,
yes,
they really know. All of them, to me, all of them definitely is whoever perform should be getting the. None of them really establish themselves as far as no Carty. Them big scores of Carty, them 200s. To me, he is now got a place now. You can't.
Clearly, Sammy has a lot of confidence in Carty, and he's given Carty a lot of chances. And I don't have a problem with that. If he maximizes the chances and so on, all the merrier. He seems to be mature. We'll see what he does when he goes to England. Better attack, and we'll see what happens there. But I think I'm glad I give this youngster Wickham a chance, because I think Wickham is very, 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 very good. So we'll see. But I don't believe in this thing. Give them a chance to play this, play that. Do what the Indians did with the 14-year-old boy.
Look, Dr. Hines, what has happened here in the past ages, like in the West Indies team, the first 5 or 6 that was locked up. You gotta hope for somebody dies, okay? And that's the contrast that I'm getting at. You don't have that in the West Indies team right now.
That's right.
Open.
That's right.
Whoever is on farm and making runs, until somebody establishes themselves going into and making runs, they have got to play if Anderson is making runs, because none of them are ahead of Anderson as far as I'm concerned to put them in a team.
They have two places in the middle order, in my view, that are open, because Chase is going to battle in the middle order, and Atenes is going to play. Atenes had a half century in Pakistan, right? So
Basil, Atenes is going to play because he's a sacred cow.
No.
Atenes is going to play because they invested in Atenes.
Yes, but
Atenes he's not going to play pong for pong. But I'm saying pong for pong.
Basil, Pakistan is a different. Pakistan is different.
No,
I am playing no Atenes in no force test.
Atenes should not be a certainty.
Atenes got a 90-something against a bowling attack similar to Australia in South
How
Africa.
long was that, Basil? How long?
Last year.
Basil, you're
Last year.
overdoing the stats story, man.
Last
You're
year.
overdoing the stats.
No, you can't just tell me but Anderson, because you see Anderson doing week
No.
in first class in week cricket, and a man who make runs against top attacks, you throwing it on the one side.
How often he made the runs against top
but
attacks?
that's West Indies cricket right now. That's West Indies cricket, 20-something average batsmen. That's unfortunate. But when you look at it,
Athens, if for them, he should have been dominating here, okay? But right now, I'm saying Athens and all of them, Carty come true. But all of them, to me, Hodge and all of them.
No, well, why I say two places. Hodge, I don't have Hodge as a certainty. And then you get a space open. Right? So it's two places because I know Athens getting picked.
Yes, I know he getting picked, but not because he deserves to be
name.
picked.
And Chase is two of the middle order of the
But
four.
Chase got up here, Chase.
Yes,
Yeah.
So we got there are two places open. Now, Anderson goes and does business in those test matches. He puts his hand up because the South Africa team is clearly a better team than any one of we jokey first class teams, right? So if he goes and make runs there, a team, that is what I said to all the Anderson fans, where they want just to put in the West Indies team. I said, no. Let us see him first in the A team.
That's what I said too, Basil. He got to make runs.
Yes.
Whoever's
Once
making the
Anderson
run,
make runs in the A team, Anderson
totally
is
agree
in
with
the
that.
West Indies squad.
I was hoping yesterday, and that's why I was rooting for him when that rain came. He was going good, so I said good.
He was going good in the first game and farted something, and then he had an LBW there. He looking for something and get it straight back.
Yeah. Listen, Chase is going to bat at 6.
Yes.
Imlak is going to bat at 7. And the 4 bowlers. They'll have to play Warrican and 3 fast bowlers because Warrican is the vice captain. Right?
No. Not because he's the vice captain. If we turn up on the Barbados pitch and it green just like the field, what you play Warrican for?
The West Indies selectors are not going to do that because they're not rational.
They
are not rational. They are not going to name a vice captain and drop it.
Logie sit down for the West Indies team.
Yeah, because West Indies was strong and Logie said drop me.
They're not dropping Basil. They
will not drop him, Basil.
Warrican, to his credit, he was on the Mason shoulders Tuesday gone. And to his credit, acknowledged conditions. He said, I could be sitting down.
Well, that's
we hope that happens.
That would be asinine to name a vice captain.
So name him a vice captain and then
that would be really that would make them.
Well, you see, in my view, they should have never named a vice captain.
That's right.
I agree with that.
But having named him, they can't drop him. So for me, I'm with Adi here. 3, 4, and 5 are open.
That's right. It's open.
All of them are in the mix, including the Silver.
Right.
Including Anderson.
No, I don't think
all of them are
in the mix. Because if Mr. Silver was in the mix, I think he would have been in one of these games.
Basil, we are trying to be rational here.
No.
Hold on. The selectors are irrational.
No, but hold on.
We are saying here, if you're thinking rationally, the Silver should be in the mix.
Yes, but I'm saying to you, I am going by what the West Indies board said.
Yes,
they said all the test players
who
would not be in England will feature in the 2 4-day test matches.
Yes,
and when I didn't see Mr. De Silva name, but here this part here. If indeed they don't pick De Silva, they got to answer some questions, because how could you interview a guy for captain of the West Indies?
Yes.
And you don't pick the man? That would be some crazy
Basil and Adams, I have a sneaking suspicion. Those selectors are going to sacrifice Imlak and put
No.
Hold on. I am not saying that should happen. I'm for Imlak.
Imlak is one of the
Basil, you're not listening, man.
I listening, yes.
I am saying Imlak earns his place behind the stump as a first keeper.
Yes.
But those irrational chaps.
No. Sammy in the bad. I know Sammy
You
bad
can't be
against the bad.
here, Dr. Hand. I would have said that there was a chance to say what you're saying, but you know what? Imlak, because I was always saying that this boy he's not. We know he's not a better wicketkeeper than Imlak. But when he started making all them runs, I said, "Oh, geez, that's
Imlak go make runs."
But Imlak come back and make and match.
I am an Imlak man, and I'm saying Imlak is my automatic wicketkeeper batsman.
Imlak is automatic.
The craziness I've seen from this selection, well, there's not a committee. It's one man selecting the team. It's one man. The craziness I've seen from that one man in selection, I will not be surprised if to appease Joshua and the Trinidadians, the sacrifice. I know it's Guyanese, we don't like you. We should be using that word. All right.
If Sammy want to get,
they can't be that be a face.
All right.
We ain't dealing with the people. They can't be that be a
region, right? Now you go and pick the silver in front of him, like. We gonna run it out to the car.
That can't be that be a face.
No. Sammy by
let's hope they don't do that.
When the 4 days start, Basi, when the 4 days start?
Let me see, I'll tell you.
The 4 days starting not this coming week, the week after.
Oh, so we got okay, we got a little time.
Or later on this week. No, Sunday. It starts on the weekend. Check, Bishop. Butcher, check.
No.
That's what we gotta keep the eyes on. Looking to the test matches. We gotta look that.
Yeah, the first test match starts on June 4th,
which is Sunday, right?
Yeah, I think it's Sunday.
Sunday. That's what I thought. So we shall see, because I think they're gonna do some craziness with that selection. I just have a sneaky.
No. Not in black though.
If our scout, who's we scout?
He got the position nailed down.
Who's the Guyana scout? Sarwan?
The Guyana scout is Mr. Sarwan.
I wonder where's his voice? Where's his voice?
No,
with all this stuff that's going on.
As a scout, he just gives them information about Guyana cricketers and a rundown about all of them. And then the what they call it, the talent ID manager then will take it, and he and Mr. Sammy, he gives Sammy all the different players and so on, and then Mr. Sammy, with coaxing from he, make a final decision.
So who is coming home? Who is coming home from Ireland? Because I noticed
John Campbell is coming home. We know that.
Shamar is coming home, I understand, because
he's also playing in the second test.
The second test. So he coming home. Yes. Who else coming home?
Campbell and him.
Blades wasn't Blades supposed to be with Campbell?
They changed their mind.
They get Blades playing the 18th.
Yeah, they changed
their mind. Didn't they pick Blades to go to Ireland?
Yeah, but it seemed like maybe what happening here, Shepherd may be missing the ODIs, but Shepherd gonna be in time to play the T20s.
Yes.
Right? By the time the IPL gone done. So they change up their mind. They worry with bring Blades to England.
They worry carry Blades to England. So Etmaya's coming in Tuesday in England.
Yeah, I think he coming.
Adams by.
No, you can't show up a visit. It's you by.
Me.
Might just being sarcastic.
I know, Doc. Hinds'Sight, you there for pin and needles for your buyer.
I was saying to Adams, when they come to this T20 team, the captain don't like open. So he gonna slap.
No. He gonna open. Wait. No. Sorry.
Butch, the captain don't like open because when he open, his weaknesses. So he gonna slot himself in the middle of the T20 team. So he.
But they ain't pick. You know, it's interesting.
They picked the team. They release it yet. I'm sure they
They
pick it.
released the T20 team yet.
Yes.
Yes.
So you get Puran
Yeah, Mr.
in the
Puran.
middle. You got
But
Ian
they
in
got
the
the batting 3, no?
Yes, so Puran, Hope at 4, our boy from Guyana, the boy from Enmore, Rutherford. Rutherford is 5, Chase at 6, and then you have the Shepherds and the Bowlers and so on. Where Adams' boy Etmire in that team? Etmire is only going to get into that T20 team if Hope opens. Which means if Hope opens, then King gets dropped.
Then a drop King, I don't. And I believe that's what.
And to me, that's King's stronger format, the T20.
I think so too.
In the first, at least the first game, then a droppy.
So Etmire has no place in that T20 team.
Well, maybe the second one, because I think they're gonna need a lot of experience. You know,
you hear my thing there. Hope Purana 3, Hope at 4, Rutherford at 5.
Yeah,
there's no place there for Etmire.
I agree. No, I agree with that. But King is gonna play.
But you remember the last game we played in the World Cup. Hope opened the batting.
Well, because he wasn't captain.
No, he wasn't captain of the team. That was Mr.
That's why I'm saying he was not captain. But from what I'm hearing from people who close to the team, he always insists in batting in the middle when he's captain.
Well, actually, in T20 is a different story.
Well,
because
Butcher, you just rationalize the irrationality of this.
No, I mean, I have heard him say, because you remember people was talking about sending him up the order to open for Guyana in the CPL, and he said he has no problem with opening the batting because remember it's 20 overs. That means there's more batting for you.
Yeah, well, I hope he opens because I think that's where he should be. Now, I was asking Butcher, Adams before we go, what is the inside story behind dropping Powell from the captaincy? You know, usually by just give you the back room thing.
What?
Is it because the Philly can't make the team?
No.
Is it bad by his story?
No, it's he and Sammy had some philosophical difference.
All right.
Remember, Sammy is this data-driven man. Everything is data-driven. And Powell and him, it seems the two of them clashed on tactics and so on. And then on top of that, you know, a lot of people didn't know the last 10 T20s West Indies played, they lose 9.
Yes.
Right. So Sammy is probably armed with that stat. You know, but it's interesting you get rid of the captain, but not the coach.
But remember too, Basil, I think it also has to do with remember that fiasco when they were sending him home. You remember that in the T20 was it the CPL?
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was. But them guys, them things just linger. Them things that still hold a bad feelings with who, depending on who your friends are.
That was Jamaica. Chanders was the coach.
Yeah, I know that, but you never know the relationships behind the scene.
Yeah, because I listening to even you could have gleaned Sammy at the press conference. That there was some philosophical differences between the two, and tactically and so on, between the two of them. You know that why they got rid of Powell. But it's interesting. You're data driven and all these things and so on. The captain get rid of. And
the coach and get rid of.
The coach still manning the ship.
The coach
right? So I don't know if Shea Hope is seen as a data inclined guy like Sammy, and he is gonna run the ship like how Sammy wanted the ship to run. You know, I just feel this end with this. I just think Sammy is too much in, and Sammy, in my view, should be stepping back. Let the captain get all the glare. God, is the captain is man the ship when they walk out there in the field? Is the captain want to set the culture of the team that he wants to lead, how he wants the guys and so on, Sammy is not captain no more. Ishe Hope is the captain.
But again, that's where we want to copy everything. We want to do like baseball, where
Yes.
the captain, when the captain gets the team, the captain takes that team out to the field and makes all the decisions. But we want to do like baseball, where and football, where the coaches call all the plays. That's nonsense. That's not cricket. That's not how cricket is being played. And that's why you don't get me on my soapbox here about all these coaches. All these coaches, assistant coach, a leg spinner coach. You
didn't see what McCollum them did. They fired. They got rid of a lot of the analysts. Because McCollum said, we don't want so much of this
exactly
thing. We want guys to be able to stand on their feet to read the game and those things. You know what I mean? Because when you walk out onto that field, your data could say all of this.
Exactly.
You a captain could see something.
Absolutely.
Wait, boy, this batsman, look how we playing the ball in this area here. The data didn't tell me nothing about this. I can set the field and tell me, bowler, let we attack this and so on.
Exactly.
So you want guys to be able to think on their feet. And I always remember Clive used to say that we wanted players that can think on their feet.
Absolutely. Yep.
Basil Butcher Jr., Dr. Vincent Adams, former Guyana opening batsman. We have had quite a show tonight. So as we come back next week, we got some unanswered questions. Are the crazies going to prevail? Or is the rationality that we are trying to bring to bear on the thing, is that going to prevail? I think it's very clear. I think Sammy, an individual, should not be tasked with it is too much.
I agree.
There is no logical and rational thinking behind the decisions. It's okay to disagree with a decision, but I can't agree with irrationality. I can say, well, okay, this person is not picked and that person should have been picked. That's a different argument. What I'm asking, what is your thinking with a Tyson?
Well,
I'm not a Sinclair.
Dr. Hines, that is a sore point for me with CWI. Their media relations, they put out these generic press releases. We want the press to engage with whomever every time you pick a team. We want to know why John Jones in the team and why John Jones is not in the team. Not every quarterly and some generic press release. This is and Dr. Hines, I would say this: the CWI. I think these guys trying to say, "Oh, we are the smartest, we're the brightest bulbs in the block." And you see these systems we coming up with. You see the system we came up with to come up with a captain. And we have this unique selection system. We are trendsetters.
Trendsetters. Gentlemen, I'll see you all next week.
All right.
Sure. Okay.
Take care.
And to you, the audience, thanks for staying with us as usual. Your comments are very welcome. And some of you do send me comments after the program. Bamo, Mr. Bamfield, I get your comments. I have to reply to some of them, but we have to get you on the program here, on the panel, to give us some of your insights, This week is going to be another week in our Caribbean, and we will survive it until next week, Sunday, for another program of West Indies Cricket 101.
Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here come the West Indies. I tell you now, here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here come the West